Right, welcome to part one of a series of VTMs about this character. We're going to rig her with a CATRig, we're going to skin her, we're going to use skin morph to fix any skinning issues around the joints, we're going to use skin wrap to make her clothes work, and we're going to build a facial rig for her. So in this first part we're going to build a CATRig. So first thing to do is I'm going to turn the turbo smooth off because I like to work with the model as I'm going to skin it, and then I've x-rayed her and frozen her. I'm also just going to hide her eyes because we don't need to see them. There we go. Right, so to first of all create the CATRig is create helpers, cat objects, choose cat parent, make sure you haven't got one of the presets there selected, and create a cat parent object there. In the modify panel I'm going to give it a name here, that's going to be vampire, and this name will build up hierarchically up here. So I'm not actually going to change the name for any of the parts up here. Changing them in the modify panel here will build up a hierarchical name there. The cat units ratio should be about 0.75 because that's about the right size for a standard human. And I'm going to position the CATRig at 0, 0 so that it's all completely symmetrical. Now create pelvis, and we can position the pelvis here where we want. So first of all in the front viewport, lift the pelvis up to about there. Just have a look in the side viewport. And what we're looking to do is position this pivot point around the center of the kind of curve of the buttocks, and that should mean that when this thing is animated, that curve should be quite easy to maintain when we skin it. Just going to shorten the length to make it a bit more suitable to the model. That's about right. And then in the front viewport, we have to imagine now, because the leg is going to grow out of the side, the center of this side of, or that side of the pelvis. You need to imagine a straight line coming from that point down through the knee and down to the foot, and actually that's a pretty good position for it to be in. You may need to widen that up or narrow it down as you go. So add leg, and then we're going to position the leg. We start at the foot, and the foot needs to be positioned just like so, not there, like so, and make it a suitable size for the base of the foot, like so. That's good. And then we actually move the foot bone. First of all I'm going to rename it because it's called ankle at the moment. I think foot is a much better name for it. And then using the side view, I have to go into wireframe. First of all I'm going to position this end of the foot bone down at where it will join the first toe knuckle, which is about there. You can see a little blue cross at the point where it's going to pivot from. So I've positioned that there, and you can imagine the toe growing out from that point. Then I rotate it back to go up the foot, and the idea being is that the foot bone needs to point up towards where the bony ankle bone would be, and we change the length of the foot there to make all of those things tie up. Now I'm going to assume that the bony part of her ankle is about, actually it's probably going to be a bit higher than that, about there. If you actually have a bony part of your ankle on the model, then that's a huge bonus. Just going to narrow the width down a bit for cosmetic purposes, and then I'm going to add a toe. Okay. Oh, I seem to have accidentally renamed that again. Foot. That's what I wanted to call it. And if I select it now, you'll see this hierarchical name being built up. It's called vampire leg foot. I'm going to add in the toes now. So number of digits 1. She only needs one toe because she's wearing a shoe. And then if I click on the toe, I only actually need one bone in the toe. So I'll change the number of bones to 1, and I will call it toe. And then the other thing I'm going to do with the toe is I'm just going to make it thick enough to touch the floor, so that when we're animating with it, we can be pretty sure when the bone's touching the floor that her foot will be touching the floor. Okay. Now we're also something wrong with my typing today. We're also going to cosmetically change the foot to match the shape of the shoe for the same reason, so that we can tell when the heel is on the ground. So to cosmetically change any of the bones, just put an edit poly on top of them, and then we're going to do some quick modifications. I'll run this at high speed so you don't have to watch it at my boring slow modelling pace. Okay, so now I've got the shape of the foot defined. You can see that I'll be able to tell from those bones for sure whether the foot is on the ground or not. It just remains a simple case to collapse this stack here, and then it will come back to becoming a bone object, and you can see it maintains the shape. And I can just turn that shape off by unticking Use Custom Mesh, and it goes back to the original shape. Okay, so that's the foot set up and modified. The next thing then is to get the knee joint in position. So I'm going to select the knee, and I need to obviously move this back and up a bit so it fits in with the knee on my model. But what I need to avoid is I need to avoid the knee moving in this direction, because that will mess up the IKs later on. So the way to do that is just to use local coordinate system here, and then I can, again in the side viewport, just move that up into position, and I'm moving it so that the pivot point here is on the middle edge loop of the joint and about 1/3 back from the front, and that's quite a good position for joints to work at. Okay, I'm going to name the bottom bone of the leg calf and the top bone of the leg thigh. And then I'm going to put in some segments on both. I'm going to change the size first. The thigh is probably about right. I'm just going to shrink down the calf bone because when you're skinning, if you're the kind of person who likes to use envelopes, then getting the bone size right initially will get you some decent envelopes. When we do the skinning later on, I'm not going to bother using envelopes. It's not really my style. So I've done that. 3 segments for the calf, 3 segments for the thigh, and you can judge the amount of segments according to the amount of topology you've got in the leg. So I've probably got a couple of edge loops there roughly for each segment. Should give me quite a smooth twist. Okay. The ones on the foot here are for foot twisting motion to be taken into account, and the ones in the thigh here are for sort of karate kicks and such like. So now I've got one leg set up. It's a simple case of just going back to my pelvis and adding another leg, and we get an identical leg in every way added in the other side. Job's a good one. Now I didn't actually rename this here. This is the hub, but I want to rename it as pelvis because that's what it is. And then if I deselect, reselect vampire pelvis. Next comes the spine. So put in a spine, add spine onto there, and a spine doesn't need to be this flexible. It gives you 5 bones as a default. Actually, I think 3 is usually adequate. You want 2 for the lower part of the back, which is more flexible, up to the bottom of the rib cage, and then 1 bone for the rib cage, or rib cage area. You'll see in a minute how that will work out. Right, just going to change the sort of size of those spine bones, so it's a little bit more fitting with the character. And widen up each one. Unfortunately, you have to widen each bone individually. And then just in the side viewport here, I'm just going to rotate them so that they fit in to the sort of curvature of the spine as I've got it at the moment. And for each bone, I'm just going to change the length a little bit to make sure that it fits in with this idea of a more flexible lower half, like so. And this one will go back like that. Obviously needs to be longer because that's going to be the less flexible region of the back. Now I've got there's quite a lot of curvature on the back of this character, but that's what the shape she is, so that's fine. Then I've got this hub at the top, which is called pelvis 01, which is obviously a silly name. I'm going to call it rib cage, and that one I'm going to make quite a lot higher, like so, and shorter, so it fits in a little bit better, and I shall move it down a little bit as well, and back a little bit. Okay, the idea of that is that between that and this spine bone here, you can get some element of flexibility in the top half of the body, which it just gives you a little bit of manoeuvrability when you come to skinning. Right, I'm going to add a arm next to it, and you can see that the default position for the arm is to come out of the middle of that, just like it did with the leg. But what I'm going to do is obviously move that up to the top here a little bit, and it's quite handy the fact that it gives you this arm pointing downwards, because it gives you an idea of how far out the shoulder should come, because you can see from this, I'm just going to move all of those across together, you can see from this that the width of the arm, the shoulder needs to come out enough so that when the arm is down it fits in next to the body, so something like that. Then I'm just going to rotate this up to the arm position there, and then I can do some positioning on the rest of the arm. So first of all, grab this hand, and I'm going to align this up to the wrist position, like so, aiming for right bang in the middle of the wrist joint in front and top views. Okay. We'll sort the hand rotation out in a minute, but let's just get the elbow into position again using local coordinates for exactly the same reason we did with the knee, so we don't change the plane of movement of the IK. So if we put it there, it's going to be on the middle edge loop, about 1/3 back from the pointy bit of the elbow. Okay, you can see from the arm shape there that there's a bit of curvature. That's not going to matter too much. I don't know if you notice the shin bone also missed the mesh by quite a lot. These things are not real problems at all. Just going to size them again to about 3/4 of the size of the limb itself. And then before I sort out the hand, I'm actually going to put the digits on so I know which way round the thumb is actually going to be, which side it's going to be on. So I will name the bones first. That one's just going to be upper, so I know it's the upper arm. That one's going to be forearm, and this one I will call hand because I prefer that to the word palm. Number of digits 5 this time, and you can see which way the thumb goes, so now I can align the hand bone up quite easily. little bit difficult to get the hand position exactly right, because you have the consideration of the fingers. And you're trying to scale the width of the hand so that the fingers all look about the right kind of position and placement, something like that. And the length of the hand to go up to the middle of the finger knuckle, a bit like that, and just make the hand thin enough so that you can actually see the mesh when the hand bone's in place. Again, makes life that bit easier. Right, next thing is to fix the fingers. So for each of these fingers, first of all I'm going to rename them. So this is going to be index finger. This one is going to be middle finger with correct spelling. This one is going to be ring finger. This one is going to be little finger. And this one, of course, is going to be thumb. Now I need to change the size of the bones so that they're all a bit more sensible and fit into the fingers, proportional to the fingers and the mesh. So something about that size is going to be 1.5. I'm just going to make each of them 1.5 square. Okay, and that's fairly good, and do the same for the thumb. Right, now we can get halfway to getting the fingers aligned up using a cunning tool called Digit Manager. So we select the hand, go onto the motion panel, and right down the bottom of the motion panel, here's the Digit Manager. I can choose the fingers that I'm interested in, so let's work with the 4 main fingers first of all, and then if I turn it around this way you'll be able to see a bit easier. I can use a bit of finger curl to curl them all round to match the kind of curl of the fingers in the mesh, just to give me a start. I'm never going to get it exactly right. I've also got a thing in there called bend, which is bending from the knuckle, so I can use that to help as well. And should I need it to help me with this, I've also got spread and the rather bizarre roll, which you can use for, I don't know. So that will get you an initial start on those. With the thumb, go back to Digit Manager. With the thumb, it's a good idea to put a bit of thumb curl on first before you move it, so you know which way round the thumb is actually expecting to bend, and then you can actually use spread to angle it out like that, and a bit of roll to bring it round into roughly the right kind of position. And we're trying to get the top face orientation here roughly right, and that's a good starting point. The next part is then manipulating those bones step by step, boring. So again, I'm going to do this bit in high speed so that you don't have to watch me at my boring slowest. Right, that will do. That is as accurate as I need to get it. How accurate your hands need to be is obviously going to be a matter for individuals based on what kind of animation they're expecting their character to do as they use it. So just a couple of final tweaks here. And then same as the legs, we need to put on segments to allow for twisting on the skin. You can see there the segments have pre-twisted themselves. Doesn't matter at all. The skin modifier will not know when it comes to skin them. So add on another arm, which of course will be identical to the one we've just created, and then we've just got the head we're going to add on. We're going to do that with another spine, so click add spine, and we're just going to move this in the side viewport. We want the pivot point for this spine, which is obviously just going to be the neck, to be about here behind the ear on the back of the skull. So let me shrink that right down so we can see it. And the reason for that is that it's going to be, that's the point where your spinal cord enters your skull, and is the point where it's going to look at its most natural. So somewhere round about there, otherwise your head will not turn in the correct manner. And we only need 2 bones for this. I'm going to call it neck, because again that will make more sense. And this bone, instead of ribcage 01, is going to be called head. And then I'm going to start actually with this near the top of the ribcage bone. This one positioned about there in the middle, probably a little bit higher up, following the shape of the neck in your model to make it look that bit more natural. Okay, let's just widen them up. Not quite sure why spines always come in rectangular, but they do. There you go. And that's that. We just need one more bone, which is not a bone we're actually going to use in the skin modifier. We just need it later on for the facial rig, and that is going to be a jaw bone. So click add bone, and then this bone up here, and just in the side view, we're going to position it so that the pivot point is about here, which is about where the jaw operates from, which is about just about where the ear joins onto the head. That's about where your jaw hinges. And make it vaguely jaw shaped and sized, and we will make those cosmetic in a minute. Just call that head jaw, or just jaw actually. I need to get over the top on this. Okay, so looks rather odd, the head rig at the moment, but everything else should now be in place, ready to work. So final thing, we're just going to clean this up and make it cosmetic. So let's unfreeze the character, and I'm going to just go into poly subobject and select the head, because I want to use that to make some cosmetic head bones. Detach as a clone, and then I can isolate that, and we shall work on that just for a second. So first things first, we need to extract off all the top part of the head. So I'm actually going to select the lip here, grow. I only want the top lip at this point, and I think one more grow should do it. Just that vertex we don't really want. Convert to poly selection. That is just about spot on. So now I can add in the rest of the top of the head. Right, I'm going to detach that, not as a clone, and then I'm going to choose the polys that make up the jaw, and detach them, again not as a clone, and then I can just delete my current object. I'm just going to symmetry those over. So symmetry modifier for that. And symmetry modifier for this. S is the symmetry. I'm also going to affect the pivot only of this one, because just move it down to the jaw position there, so that that works a little bit more usefully. Hello. These are only cosmetic bones, remember, nothing clever or advanced about this. What I am going to do though is, before I add them onto a bone or attach them onto a bone, I'm going to take the material off them, because otherwise it will apply the material from this onto the bone, and things will look rather terrible. So just use the UVW remove utility there just to get rid of the material. Right, so ready to add them onto the bones now. Unisolate. Go to the head bone. Let's just freeze the body again. Go to the head bone. Edit poly on top. Attach the head object like so, and collapse that. Now I have a cosmetically shaped head bone. Go to the jawbone, add an edit poly, and attach that. And I'm also going to hide or delete the old one for the jawbone. Collapse that. Okay. Now, unfreeze all. The last thing to do really is just to sort out the layers for this character. So I've already got some layers set up in here. Body and bones, and 0 is the default layer. Obviously, what we've done is everything we've done at the moment has been on body, because that's the default layer that's ticked there. So I'm just going to hide that, and then I'm going to select everything here, choose the bones layer, and just add it onto the bones layer. And then the only exception to that is I'm going to choose the cat parent and add that onto 0, and you'll see why when we come to do skinning. So now I can actually hide all of the bones. I can unhide the vampire body, and we're ready. I'll unhide her eyes as well, just to make her look a little bit more human. Is she human? I don't know. And there we go, CATRig built.